Hi, this is Matt Johnson with Viral Marketing. I'm excited to welcome you. This is the Master Your Mindset Hangout with Matthew Ferry. It's the first one we've done this year, so we're excited for you to join us. Matthew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And just want to point out, guys, this is an interactive live event, so we've got a special guest with us today. I know you guys are excited for this. But if you guys have questions, right here on the Google Plus page, just type them in as a comment. I'll be watching that throughout the event. That way I can bring your questions to Matthew. And Matthew, why don't you tell us what we're going to talk about today with mindset and introduce our special guest for the day.
Great. Well, each month we're having a conversation with a top agent, somebody who has spent time mastering their skills, becoming effective at real estate, understanding the mechanics of real estate, but then coming up against a barrier and discovering that the barrier is no longer the mechanics, but that the barrier now is the mindset. And we have a discussion each month to try and understand, well, how do you shift your mindset? How do you overcome those barriers? And our guest today is Michael Higdon, who has been studying mindset for about 6 months now and having some great results with it. And so we want to find out what's going on with Michael. So Michael, welcome to the Google Hangout.
Thanks for having me, Matthew. I really appreciate that, and pleasure to be here.
Hey, let's start with the basics, okay, Michael? So will you just let us know, where do you sell? How long have you been in the business? That kind of thing. We'll talk about deals and that kind of thing too.
Sure. I'm based out of Louisville, Kentucky. That's the market we sell in, and part of southern Indiana. Been in the business since 2002, 12 to 13 years roughly, and just sell strictly residential real estate here in Louisville.
Okay, fantastic. Now, you've been studying. You're a studier. That's probably one of the things that binds all of us together. You and I and Matt and all of our viewers. We study, we learn, we grow. You've been studying the mechanics of real estate for a long time.
Yes.
But recently you decided to start studying the mindset behind real estate. And how long have you actually been studying the Top Agent Mindset program?
I started the Top Agent Mindset program in October of 2014, so roughly 6 months.
Okay, great. Now, you and I had a discussion beforehand to really make sure that this interview went well and that we provided a tremendous amount of content for our viewer. Tell me this, 2013, you did 40 deals.
40 deals, yes.
And then in 2014, you jumped up 11 deals. You did 51.
51, correct.
What was the difference between 2013 and 2014 for you?
One, the market was better here than previously, so that always helps. Doing more or looking for more legs on the table, I guess, is the adage we use around here. Finding different avenues to be more successful in. We do a lot with estates. Our sphere of influence was tremendous that year. It represented about 70% of my business that year. So just a lot of stars aligned, and just was able to make a 20-25% growth that year.
Well, that's awesome. So at the end of the year, you decided to begin training on your mindset.
Yes.
And it's created a different trajectory for you. We are near the end of Q1 now of 2015. That'll be in a week or so. And what are you on track for based on your Q1? So what will 2015 be, just based on your estimates at this moment?
Right now I'm at 15 closed and pending. My goal is to do 75. We always have two better quarters than the other in the rest of the year. So my two best quarters are second quarter and third quarter, as I'm sure a lot of agents are, just because that's when most of our business comes on. I'm going to do more in the summertime. I know that, in the springtime. So I feel quite positive that I'm going to hit that 75, between 70-75 deals.
That's a phenomenal growth trajectory. We're going to circle back to what actually has made the difference in 2015 in a moment. But first, what I want to do is I want to get present to what's been happening. Okay, so you made a 25% jump in 2014, but you decided to add mindset training to your regimen. Why did you do that? What were some of the problems and issues that you were faced with before you did mindset training that made you say, you know, maybe I'm going to do some mindset training?
I was, I think like a lot of people that are growth minded, you look at your business, and I was beating myself up a lot, and I didn't like where my business was headed. I'd go home at night and realize, you know, I left a lot of money on the table today, and I didn't do what I was supposed to do, which was prospect in the morning. And I just began to wonder, you know, I know what you mentioned, you know, the doing part of it is. I know what I have to do on a daily basis. The big question is, you know, why am I not doing that? And I guess what you talk about is the success paradox in the training, that my desire for success was being met with an unconscious, you know, a very much an unconscious resistance. And I wanted to find out, you know, why have I had this? Why have I had this probably for the last 10 years, 10 to 12 years of my career? And is there one piece that I'm missing that I see other agents out there that I know and talk to have?
And you talked about, in our pre-interview process, you talked about how you had this idea for a couple years that you wanted to start calling the old expireds and canceleds, and it was literally like every day you'd say, okay, today's the day, and then you'd get distracted and you wouldn't do it.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about what those distractions were. What was causing this?
Well, it was almost as if I was looking for distractions. You know, you'd come in and there'd be people in the office that you'd see talking about something of interest, and you allow yourself to go into that conversation. Or my assistant is working something that she can handle quite well, but I got to make sure she's doing it because I can always do it better than she can. Or there's a mailer that I could send out that she could do better than I can. Or anything else but getting on that phone and doing what I was supposed to be doing that was going to be a money-making activity for me. I was being drug away by the drunk monkey to do those things.
And what was the effect of that? So that, you know, you kept getting distracted, and you're kind of beating yourself up. You were sort of doing everything except for the things that you knew, I want to do this, but then you weren't doing it, and you were aware, right? You were conscious of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I want to do it and then I'm not doing it and then I was unconscious. It's like I want to do it, I'm not doing it, and I'm realizing I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
What impact did this have on your business, on your life, on your marriage, on your health? What impact did that riff have on you?
Several things. You know, frustration, complacency, not really depression, but you know, you get home and you're just like, come on, you know you're better than this. You can do more than this. So just a lot of questioning, and it was like you're on that hamster wheel every single day of, okay, let's do it today. But then you wouldn't do it in the morning, and then you start making excuses for yourself in the afternoon. You know, I've got 2 hours right now. I don't have any appointments. I'll do it now. And you didn't do it now, so then by the end of the day, you haven't done anything that you said you wanted to do that day, and you continue to beat yourself up even more, and it's just that over and over and over again, and that voice in your head would not shut up.
Yeah. The drunk monkey, as we like to call it. So
That's him.
you've been focusing on getting your mindset right.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for about 6 months, and I suspect that you've realized that there is a hidden cause behind all of this insanity, behind the problems, behind the ups and downs. What is that hidden cause that you have noticed? What causes this to happen?
Fear.
And fear, you know, we talk about the unconscious reflexes, one of them being the fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
How fear of failure has been impacting you.
You're afraid. You know, I think every day I'm trying to strip away that fear to be successful. It is you get a fear of taking risk. You get a fear to get on that phone. You get a fear of sometimes of even being successful. You know, I see these other agents that are doing more than I do. I've got friends in other markets that do more than I do, and I go and learn and shadow them, and I say, you know what, I can do that, and I can do that. But when you get back to the office, you have all these tools, and then something stops you from doing that. And it's not the tools. It's within your own head. And that fear that complacency, that was what was stopping me.
So, you know, there are 6 unconscious reflexes that we have distinguished together. One of the big ones for you was the fear of failure. Another one being the desire to fit in, not wanting to be embarrassed and
Yeah.
not wanting to, you know, not wanting to offend people and not wanting to look bad, that kind of thing. But let's talk about, before you started this mindset training, you know, listen, let's be honest. There's a lot of mindset stuff out there in the world, and I bet you've tried a bunch of it.
Oh, sure.
Before you did Top Agent Mindset, let's just real quickly look at, well, what are some of the things that you've tried and what were the results? Because what we're going to talk about today, like the tactics and the things you and I are going to give to people, are radically different than what everybody else teaches. But you've sort of tried it all. Tell us about some of the things that you did to get your mindset right before we tell them about what actually worked.
Positive affirmations, reading those to myself in the morning, having them up in my shower, talking myself up. I'm a pretty big reader. I read a lot of books, self-help books, and I love the message that they give you. That is, if you implement those. So just doing a lot of those things, but coming in and saying, you know, come on, let's just do this, doing it more, beating your head against that wall, thinking that more was the answer, and just trying harder. Well, trying harder is not always the answer. If you keep the old adage of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So I think there was a little insanity there with some of the things that I was doing.
You know, it's interesting. For me, I tried the affirmations, and the affirmations actually, in a lot of ways, were counterproductive. And then visualization, you know, it's nice, but does it really change your behavior? Typically, no. But these are all things that people have told us to do. Make a dream board, do affirmations, write your affirmations, you know, get into the energetic state of what you want to accomplish. All this stuff sounds like a good idea, but if you notice, not too many people actually changing their behavior. There's got to be something else. So,
and I've got those too. You mentioned talking about, you know, in the training that you do, you mentioned, did you ever notice that you always write the same goals every year, but you never attain those? Well, I think I've had a lot of those same goals over the last 10 years, and a lot of them haven't changed just because, again, on that hamster wheel, doing the same things over and over again and still haven't hit them. And all that does is, again, increases your, it starts to knock you down after a while when you haven't hit those goals.
Yes, it does. So over the last 6 months, you've been experiencing a pretty massive increase in your business, and in your productivity and in your confidence. What was the real solution? I mean, if we're really looking at it, what actually caused you to start really moving forward and creating this new business that you're creating now?
Really, I guess it was trying to understand what the drunk monkey was and what he was doing to me, and recognizing, getting awareness of it. I think you talk, the technique that you talk about is the game changer process in your training. So it first really started with awareness that there was a problem, and catching the drunk monkey, saying, okay, you're doing it again. So if there's an anxiety getting on the phone, he's got me, I'm doing it again. If there's an avoidance at any time, okay, there's something wrong here, why am I avoiding getting on the phone? And you giving us those techniques in the training to recognize it, and once you have that awareness, that's going to lead to the flexibility that you have options here, and the flexibility is going to lead to the control of those options, and eventually, if you list out all the options that you have, that's going to lead to more power, and the power is going to have the ultimate trump card to knock the drunk monkey down.
Personal power. So what were some of the results that you saw really taking on the drunk monkey? Because people say all the time, you know, Matthew, do I spend time learning the new technique or implementing the new marketing, or do I spend time understanding what my mind is doing? And the answer is really both, right? You do need to understand how to implement what will make you money, but the problem is if you don't get the mindset right, you won't do this thing over here.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the results that you saw, and then we'll get into some tactics here, of beginning to pull apart the drunk monkey and see what's really going on in here?
Sure. I mean, the main thing is totally becoming unattached to all the results that are happening. You're really dialing down onto the process that you're using, and any process is going to work. You know, we'll talk about more the one that I've been focusing on that's had some results for me. But whether you're sending out a lot of mailers, whether you're on the phones a lot, or whether you're talking to your sphere of influence via letter, or whatever you're testing out, you can be successful in all those, but you truly have to be unattached to the results that you're going to get from it.
You talked about some of the tangible results being finally starting to call the people that you have not been calling, past expireds and cancels, also
Sure.
your past clients and sphere of influence. Tell us a little bit about what was it that shifted that enabled you to finally be able to do this?
Well, I know a lot of people probably use the product Mojo on here for making a lot of calls. I had a database since 2009 of old expireds, old canceleds within that database. So I said, let's do an experiment. We talk about being a scientist a lot on the training. So I said, let's be a scientist here and look at this from a practical standpoint. So my assistant and I took all of these. It was probably over 600 leads from just 2009, and we looked those up over recently to see how many of those have sold. Well, over 50% of those sold in 2014, 2013. So I'm like, okay, these are going. It wasn't that they're not going to sell; these are going to sell, and we see that they're selling for a higher price than when they were on the market in 2009. As everyone knows, 2009 was not the best market. Our market's truly improved on that. So what we did is we updated, made sure that they were still living there, made sure that they hadn't sold, got really new phone numbers from all of the technology we use, sent out a mailer to them stating the fact that, hey, you may know that the market's improved in this area. Did you want to find out more about the numbers in your area? If they didn't respond to the letter, we got onto the phone. I started calling them. Then if they didn't answer the phone, then I would reach out to them and go knock on their door and see, if they wanted to sell. And if they weren't home, I'd leave a door hanger on their door. So every one of these things made my drunk monkey absolutely go nuts and crazy. But as a result, we got listings, a lot of listings, which sold, which led to pendings and closed properties.
That's pretty awesome. You told me that you had 10 listing appointments in January from old expireds,
Yes.
and that you took 7 listings. That's pretty
Yes.
darn amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And that was.
And explain to me about this idea of being a scientist, because it's one of the tactics that we talk about. It's part of my mindset methodology, and I think that what we want is we want our viewer to be able to do the same kind of thing. So whether they're taking on calling old expireds like what you were doing, or maybe they're just going to start a farm, or maybe they're going to implement a new lead follow-up system, or whatever it is that they want to put into place.
Right.
The drunk monkey is stopping them the same way it was stopping you with the unconscious reflex fear of failure. And being a scientist was a very practical way for you to overcome the fear and actually implement it. Tell us about your thought process around being a scientist.
Well, we're all adults here. Sometimes we don't act like adults, and sometimes a drunk monkey doesn't want us to act like an adult. But when you're acting like a scientist, you're really doing an experiment to say, okay, you go over here, drunk monkey, and settle down for a moment. The adults are going to act like it. We're going to run this experiment to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll do a number of tests on it to find out if it truly works. Whether you use a great adage of calling a for sale by owner in the training. Well, you call a for sale by owner, they hang up on you. You call a for sale by owner, they hang up on you. You get to a point where you're talking to them, and then they hang up on you. But maybe you had the wrong script in there. Okay, so we need to work on our script. Write that down. So you practice your script more. And you're calling. Boom, you get an appointment. You go out there. Well, your presentation isn't that good. So now you know your script works, but your presentation needs work. So you write down the numbers, and pretty soon you get to a point where you weren't even calling that for sale by owner to now you're in front of them working on a pretty good script and closing for the appointment. I think a lot of people are paralyzed by that fear. I know that's what's kept me from doing it, but when you truly look at it from a scientist standpoint, that I'm just doing an experiment, that's all this is. We sell real estate. I mean, think about it. What is there to fear about real estate? We're not firefighting here. We're not, cliff diving. We're selling real estate, which there's really nothing threatening us. But the drunk monkey works that way, that he wants you to think that there's real risk here, that there's really something that could harm you, and you just got
to. From your perspective, explain this concept of the drunk monkey being a survival system.
We're conditioned from it from caveman time. Your tribe. If you look at the tribe standpoint, even from if you did something different from your tribe back in caveman times, well, you'd get killed because you were weaker than the tribe. Even from a teenage standpoint, if a teenager starts doing something different from the way that their parents have conditioned him growing up, the parents are going to be like, what's going on with him? Well, he's hanging out with his new friends, his new tribes, he's doing things different than from what his parents conditioned him to do. And we're brought up, we're all conditioned to act a certain way, whether it's religion or finances, whatever. And once you go outside those norms, none of us are born natural salespeople. And you're actually going out and you're bothering people every day. You have to train yourself to bother people every day. That's what we do. But not looking at it as you're bothering people, it means that you're stepping outside your conditioned norm, whatever that may be. Knocking on a door may scare the hell out of people. But just if you recognize this is not my norm, and I recognize this is going to make me nervous, but the benefit of doing this is so much better for you, drunk monkey. Let me take care of this for you, and everything will be just fine.
Let's review with everyone right now the recontextualization exercise that you and I went through in the Top Agent Mindset training, and give them some questions that they can ask the drunk monkey. So I'll review it with them, and then you can talk about or unless you want to review it with them.
Well, what's funny is I don't know if you can see this, but these are my questions that I have. I have these in my office. I have them in my car. I've taken a picture of them so when my phone rings, I've got a picture of my questions for the drunk monkey when they come up. And they're simple. When your drunk monkey starts acting up, you simply ask, you say, how do you know this is true? Where did you learn this from? Can you tell the future? What will happen if I do this? What am I committed to? What do I want? What's the best possible outcome? What's the most effortless action I can take today to get the ball rolling? And what do I need to say to the drunk monkey to make it feel comfortable?
Let's go through those questions right now.
Sure.
In relationship to you calling your past clients in sphere, because one of the things that you told me that you really have been taking on lately, a new experiment really,
right,
is to call your past clients in sphere, and that prior to this you had not been calling them. And give us all of your excuses first. Why don't we start with all the excuses?
I don't want to bother them. They've got better things to do today than to talk to you. They're at work. Don't bother them at work. You just sold them a house a month ago. You don't need to talk to them right now. They just moved into this market. They couldn't possibly know anybody new that wants to buy or sell. The last transaction didn't go so well, so they might bring that up when you call them. So, I could go on and on.
So then we start off by doing a recontextualization exercise. We confront the drunk monkey's perspective. So I'm going to ask you, how do you know that this is true?
You don't. You don't. I don't have a crystal ball.
Right. So
None of us do.
Where did you learn all of these excuses?
You made them up.
And can you tell the future?
No.
So what will really happen if you pick up your phone and call the past clients in sphere of influence?
Well, they may give you business. They may say, hey, it's good to talk to you. What's going on? What can I do for you today? They may say, nope, I don't know anybody. And you can follow up and say, how about I check back with you the next quarter? How about that?
And what are you actually committed to, like in a global sense? with these people?
I'm committed to calling at least 5 of my past clients every single day.
Why? What does that do for them?
Because well, you have to look at it from how can I be of, we talk a lot about how can we be of service to people or contribute to people. We want to be contributing to our sphere, and that's how you have to look at it. You know, they're going to get more value if you call back and say, hey, do you know what's going on with the market right now? It's changing. I want to let you know, as one of my services to my clients, I realize you're not looking to sell right now, but it's an exciting time here in Louisville, Kentucky, because we're at a 6-year low on our inventory, and you know, blah, 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 and give them something of value that they may pass on to a friend that they talk to in a party the next day. Well, you know, my friend Michael Higdon said that they're at a 5-year low or a 6-year low in inventory. Did you know that?
And so what is the best possible outcome if you call your past clients in Sphere, for them and for you?
Yes, I do know. My neighbor's selling his house right now. You need to give him a call, and here's his number.
And what is the most effortless action that you can take today to get the ball rolling?
Pick up the phone and dial your Sphere number. I mean, it's so simple because and again, the thing that kept me from doing that is fear. And this doesn't happen overnight, Matthew. You know, we talk about that. It's not going to happen over 6 months. Hell, it took 10 years to get into this far into real estate, 12 years, excuse me, to get this far into trade. It's not going to be corrected overnight. But that's why I used to wake up at 6 in the morning. I wake up at 5:30 every morning now, and I have the mindset lessons that we talk about going every single morning, and that's how I start my day.
So what do you say to the drunk monkey about calling your past clients in Sphere to help it feel more comfortable calling them?
There's nothing to be afraid of. There's not. I mean, again, what is the absolute worst possible thing that could happen right now? Write it down. And that will not happen.
So what you're talking about there is from my mindset methodology, basically, and it's called the worst case scenario process, right?
Yes.
So let's go through the worst case scenario process with everyone. We'll take them through the 3 steps, and let's take them through that regarding something that you have been hesitating on lately that you have not actually implemented. So
okay.
rather than focusing just directly on all the wonderful things that Michael is doing, let's take some of the dirt that is still right there on your doorstep that we need to clean up, and let's work it through right now using the worst case scenario. How about that?
Okay.
Great.
Well, I got one for you. We emailed each other about, so let's use that one.
Great. Remind me, because I don't remember.
It was hiring a virtual assistant.
Oh yes, hiring a virtual assistant. And what are you going to hire the virtual assistant to do?
To make calls to not my past clients, but in and around listings, just listings and just solds.
So ISA, I think, is what they call that, right?
Yes, yes.
An ISA, an inside sales assistant. All right. So let me ask you a question. What's the worst? So we're going to go through the 3 steps now. What's the worst possible thing that can happen? Let's go to the most negative right now.
I sign a 3-month contract, and they set 0 appointments for me, and I'm out $1,500 to $2,000.
So that's the worst possible thing? I don't think so. I think there's something even worse.
That's all I can think of right now.
Okay, so I basically blow $2,000.
Right.
And I'm going to make it even worse, because the truth is the drunk monkey is much more insidious than that. The drunk monkey doesn't care about money as much. The drunk monkey cares about what money does. So first of all, you lose the $2,000. That has impact, doesn't it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's money. Well, it's money lost, I guess, from the drunk monkey standpoint. But is it really?
How about time?
Time.
And what about this person calling and making a fool of you?
And maybe calling somebody on the do not call list by mistake and getting me in trouble.
There you go. See, the drunk monkey is much more insidious. So what you want to do, and what we want our viewer to do, is go to the worst, because the drunk monkey's running in the background. The drunk monkey's saying, like, this person could call someone, and then they're on the do not call list, and now you're in trouble, and now and you hired them, and they're in India, and they don't care, and it doesn't matter. I mean, the drunk monkey gets loony. So the goal is to go all the way down into the darkness. So then the next thing on our plan is make a plan to move forward after the worst possible thing happens. Don't make a plan to avoid the worst case. That will just give the drunk monkey more power over you. So let's talk about the worst thing happens. You have there's somebody breathing down your neck about do not call. They probably call your broker. Your broker's having a conversation with you. You've lost the $2,000. You've wasted the time. The experiment didn't work. The worst possible thing happens. Now what do you do?
Well, I mean, you analyze what did or did not work, and see if you want to continue going down that road again.
And in this worst case scenario, maybe there's just a different route to be taken. Maybe it's not an ISA. Maybe there's a person that you bring into your office, or maybe there's another agent that you bring under you, and you train them to prospect, and you prospect with them, and you're prospecting side by side. There's some other part of the process or some other way that you can go about it, right? First of all,
maybe that was the wrong person to be calling into my market.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, nobody's getting their license taken away by the do not call list police, because we have not met the do not call list police yet. We're still waiting for them to show up. So then you were going to make peace with the worst case scenario. Make a promise to yourself that if that happens, you'll deal with it and survive. So how would you make peace with this worst possible thing happen, and then deal with it and survive?
Well, I mean, it's real easy to make peace with it, because if I'm doing all the other things I'm supposed to be doing, which is prospecting in the morning along with my ISA, or even after my ISA, you know what? The money's going to be there. So I really didn't lose it, because I'm still focusing on my other processes of things that are making me money, that are getting me listings. I'm going on other appointments. So when you think about it, that really shouldn't be a concern.
Outstanding. Another thing that you said that you were working on was the releasing attachment. You mentioned that in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That you mentioned it as one of the benefits of the process. And I don't know if our viewer really understands what releasing attachment means. So I'm going to give my definition, and then I'd like you to talk about releasing attachment and how you do it, and what your process is around taking new actions that you know will make you money that you're afraid of taking, but taking them anyways by releasing your attachment. So attachment is the fear, it's an exaggerated fear of losing a benefit of some sort, but it's an exaggeration. The whole thing is an exaggeration. So let's take, for example, going back to your old expireds, there was some fear that you had of losing something that was causing you not to do that. What was that fear that you had in your mind? Like, I am afraid of losing that, so I'm just not going to do it at all. What was that?
I was complacent. I was playing around with other things. I was, looking at. I'd rather try to get business off social media, because it was easy. If you want to be honest, I could go play on Twitter, or I could be on Facebook. I could, call some buddies that's an easy call. So I guess it was the sacrificing the time of being able to do these other things, as opposed to getting on the phone for 2 hours and making a call to that list that at the time I didn't know if it would generate me money or generate any deals at all.
So there was a fear that you had of sort of losing your comfort, is really what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And how was that an exaggeration? So we want to take people through the process of releasing attachment. How was that fear of losing your comfort actually an exaggeration?
Well, the drunk monkey wants you to stay there and be complacent, but once you get on the phone and start doing the things you're supposed to do, you realize that you haven't lost anything, because you weren't doing anything anyway, other than non-productive activities. So by proving the drunk monkey wrong that first day, it makes the next day a lot easier because we did that yesterday. We saw results, and you're able to catch yourself once you get into doing those things. Okay, I'm sitting here. I'm talking about the game last night to my assistant, or I'm talking to my partners about something that has nothing to do. Get in your office, close the door, and do what you're supposed to do this morning.
And really, was the comfort that you were experiencing actually even comfortable?
No, it was not comfortable.
You and I spoke about this, the impact of mindset and the positive impact that it had had on your overall feeling of well-being and on your relationship. Talk about the impact of actually being in action and feeling like you're conquering and doing, and it's like you have this feeling like, I said I would do it and I did it. Oh my gosh, I'm in control of my business. This has had some broad sweeping positive impacts. What are those things?
Sure. Well, I mean, from a mental aspect, I'm using more rational, logical thinking instead of just basing everything on emotional and being irrational. I set a goal now to be home by 6:30. I've got a 5-year-old little boy and a 2-year-old little girl that I want to go home and be excited to see. I've gotten back in the gym since the first part of the year, so my energy's up. My wife and I's relationship is better. We're setting bigger goals. We've got a long list of things that we want to do, so it's pushing me to have a better relationship with my family, to be a better father. Because these techniques aren't just real estate. You can use these with your wife, with your children, with your relationships, and realize that they have been hijacking you in a lot of your relationships. So my optimism for life is a lot better. That it's better now than it's been in the last 12 years.
And Michael, I'm curious, like, how long did it take once you got into mindset training to start seeing those types of results where you feel yourself start to think in new patterns?
After the first 2 trainings, I think. But Matthew, I saw it on I forget where I saw it. I forgot how I got it from Matthew, but he gives you an introductory course, and then you're able to jump into the main course. But even the introductory he gives you some applications to use. So probably the first couple of weeks. But if you can do it sooner, as long as you make a decision to start implementing them. It can literally happen. I don't want to sound cheeky, but it can happen overnight if you wake up and make that mental decision to say, I'm going to do something today that is going to make the drunk monkey uncomfortable as hell.
Yeah, and that's I guess the part that I'm curious about is you obviously got some results very quickly. Did you right away take the lessons that you learned from Matthew's stuff and then build some new routines that you started doing immediately every single day? Is that part of what led to that?
Absolutely.
So what were some of those routine changes you made?
Well, first of all, reorganizing my schedule so that it works better for me, making the things that I'm supposed to do paramount, and controlling my morning schedule. But it's not just about the schedule. It's when I come in, like I said, I start the day out watching or listening to what Matthew's talking about. So when I'm going through the day, I can catch myself early on in the morning. The more you listen to it, the more you're going to be able to use that training throughout the day and catch yourself. And that's the thing. You're catching yourself. If you're feeling that fear, realize that you're doing the right thing. So if anything, you're almost open to that fear now because, okay, I'm onto something. If I'm driving this drunk monkey crazy, then I'm doing something right.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, I'm sure, Matthew, you deal with this a lot, is helping people to really implement the stuff that you have. They really have to take the step that Michael has taken and implement those things right away and get them into the daily life as quickly as possible to see the kind of results that Michael's seeing.
And I agree and I disagree. So the way that I do training is different than most people. I don't really assume that my client is actually going to have the wherewithal to implement any of the things that I learn. Because their drunk monkey is running the show. So the way that I do training is like what Michael and I were doing right here in our process, is that I literally start asking the questions and get you answering those questions immediately. So when I do training, it's about pulling you through a process so that by the time you finish the process, you wake up and you're thinking differently. Now that you're thinking differently, it's more natural for you to go out and behave differently. And I think what we saw with Michael is we saw a momentum occur. So he would do a training video. It would change the way he thinks. He would go out in his day, get some different results than he would normally get, which then got him inspired and excited. Oh my God, and wanted to do it the next day. And so I'm counting on that. That's the way that I like to do training, is to create some momentum during the training, which automatically translates into results later. Michael, how have you seen that training style working in your life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's I'd say momentum was the best word that you used there. It's definitely been a momentum, and I guess I'm a normal agent just like everybody else. I was stuck. I'd get to that production level, and then you get frustrated. You know, why can't I get to that next level? And I still catch myself doing that now, but I know that if I just continue to focus on the process and be unattached to those results and stay in that momentum, then there's no level that we can't attain.
So I'd like to start wrapping it up here, and you know, maybe there's some questions that we have on the Google Hangout, maybe not. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to complete, Michael, by having you give our viewer here sort of your practical advice. Like, what do they do immediately to start training their mind? Of course, we go and do my training. That's sort of a natural part of what we're talking about, and they can do that for free with the shortcut to making $200,000 a year. You did that. But then what are just some of the practical things that you and I have been talking about that you want them to implement immediately? Is it being a scientist? Is it releasing attachment? What are you advising?
I guess combined, just be more practical about, number one, what you're trying to get on your goals, but disprove what you think are your beliefs by being that scientist, whether it's sending out a mailer, getting on the phone calling for sell by owners, whichever. I would say go after the one thing that you don't do right now and disprove that that's not going to work for you, because that's what I did. And I proved it wrong, because there is business out there to be had. So go out, be that scientist, and try everything you can. If you can't get a hold of them, go knock on the door. If you can't get them on the door, send them another letter, and then make a record of what all you're doing, reassess it, and once you do start getting people on the phone, look at what you're saying to them, what's working, what's not working, practice that with some people that you know. But yeah, I would say being a scientist is absolutely the number one thing you can do. And just know that you're going to have the fear, and every day just start stripping that fear away as much as possible, because that's only going to be more freeing to you.
Yeah, and you strip the fear away with 3 of the techniques. I mean, we shared some pretty powerful techniques. I think I have 35 total techniques that I teach in Top Agent Mindset. We just taught you 3 of them. One of them is being a scientist. One of them is the recontextualization questions that you ask the drunk monkey. Then we talked about the worst case scenario process. We also talked about releasing attachment, though we didn't go through the whole entire system for releasing attachment. So you can go back, you can watch this video, you can go to topagentmindset.com, and I've got some free programs for you to do there to continue your process. If the things that I do make sense to you, then maybe you want to engage me in some of my paid training. But what I try to do is be as generous as possible and give you as much as I can with integrity on things that can immediately change the way that you are operating and get you into massive, massive action. So before we wrap up, I just want to make sure there's no other questions. I know, Matt, you were reading some of the questions. Are there any other questions that we have, or are
no questions from the audience. So guys, as we continue to do these, just be aware that right here on the Google Plus page where you're watching this event, you can actually type your question in as a comment, and we'll bring him to the guys live. and then normally you'll see a Q&A app where you can type them in. It'll actually show up on the screen. We can address them. That feature is not working on the Hangout today, but it will be on all of our future Hangouts. So I'm excited to do these. I'm excited for the audience to submit more questions, because the more interactive it gets, the more you pull out of Matthew, the more you're going to get out of these live events. They're going to be fantastic.
Well, listen, I appreciate you for watching. I honor you for taking on something obscure like changing your mind to change your results. Mindset is the one change that changes everything, but it's also the one change that so few people ever decide to do, because they think that it's practical to try to implement a new idea. The only problem is that we do our ideas typically half-ass, and we don't go all the way, and fears and doubts and concerns get in our way. And those fears, doubts, and concerns, when controlled, when eliminated, make a profound difference in your ability to implement. And that's all I'd like to affect, is your ability to implement. You have all the tools you need as an agent to make all the money that you want to make. The only question is, why aren't you implementing them? And the answer is very simple: mindset. So this is Matthew Ferry with Top Agent Mindset. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Matt, thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
And
looking forward to the next one.
Complete.